All right. Looks like we're live. Everything should be functional here. Now then, let's see if I can figure out how exactly to pull up my screen. Maybe I can't do it. I don't know, but anyway, I guess we will go ahead and push on. Needless to say, I have not done a live before. And so I'm trying to figure out here how to share my screen. Doesn't look like I can do that just yet. Well, that's fine. Let's take some further looks here. Maybe I can't. Well, that's unfortunate. Anyway, just want to extend to everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, whatever it is that you celebrate. Wanted to say to everybody out there, be safe. It is balls ass cold outside for sure, like incredibly cold. And I wanted to bring this thought to everybody through this holiday season. It was a pretty cool thought that I came across here. And basically, if you've ever played the game Mass Effect, it's a video game, came out on like PlayStation some time ago. And I went ahead and put the notation in the details for the thread. All right, so that you can follow along, pull that thread up, and follow along here. But Mass Effect is a popular video game set up in a sci-fi universe where the galaxy is populated by different species, including humans. The core technology of every advanced species in the galaxy is that they harness zero-point energy, altering the mass of the objects in that field, giving it the name Mass Effect. And with so many people out this morning at their particular mass, I thought this only fitting thought to share here today. So Mass Effect, all over the galaxy, there are massive mass relays, which act as bi-directional portals for spaceships to travel faster than light in remote areas of the galaxy instantaneously. The network of faster than light travel and the Citadel were built by an ancient race of sentient machines called the Reapers. Their purpose is to get this. This falls in line with some of the stuff that like Jason over at Archaics is talking about when he's talking about this harvesting situation that happens. He calls it a Phoenix event. I don't know if he's adamant about saying that it's a harvesting event or anything like that. But there's some weird kind of interplay of concepts that happens in the world, right? Anyway, organic life rises and evolves along technological paths that they carefully create. Now, there's this other entity, the Reaper, that is made to wipe them out basically once they reach a certain level of like enlightenment, right? And this Reaper is made of the collective organic material of a nation. Here's where it gets really weird, right? If the Reaper is made of collective organic material, and what are we doing sending these people all of our 23andMe, right? All of this other stuff happening over the last couple of years. We're on YouTube, so we're not going to talk out about it. We'll be nice to those folks today and not give them an extra little bit of work to do by booting me. But anyway, all right. This Reaper is made of collective organic material of a nation and refers to itself as Legion. So I don't know about you guys, but, to me, that's ringing some kind of like weird truths to me when we're talking about this thing is made of the organic matter of like the whole nation. And we think about what we're doing with like biotech and things right now, right? We are creating this AI entity or, like these biotech vehicles or avatar things or whatever you want to call them, right? So we're out there doing all this crazy stuff. It's amazing by what some people say and super scary by what some other people say. But anyway, imagine that we are helping to create this thing, this Reaper, right? And I mean, even Elon Musk says, "Hey, we are creating the beast," right? He says that. So that kind of stuff gets me to thinking, makes me wonder, that sort of thing. But let's go and read a little bit further, shall we? Okay. So this brings to thought the cities that people inhabit and these old buildings that seem to have been built by someone else for maybe for a similar purpose, right? To harvest energy, or to harvest a civilization in itself. I mean, we have tales of these rapture situations happening, these like pole shifts and just people disappearing like all over the place. Um, like more people than can be accounted for with all of the bones in the crypts, they say, right? I mean, they've got an awful lot of bones in crypts, so who knows? But so imagine if those buildings were to fulfill a purpose, like to harvest our own civilization in a regular manner, right? Like similar to how people do with like chickens or farm animals, right? Or if we are being having our like organic energy harvested. Personally, guys, personally, I'm gonna put it out there, and you know, I know that not everybody's going to agree with this, but what I think is going on is we're having our energy harvested constantly through the device I'm staring at in front of me right now. My energy is being harvested through these fractal antennas that are built in here. If you've become familiar with orgone devices and seen the difference that you might have in a plant that's grown by an orgonite pyramid and one that's not, and you see the way that this plant is able to take up the energy and use it for its own growth, it's pretty amazing stuff. You know, I was on the fence about it, but I'm seeing other people do experiments with this stuff, and they're people I know, so I'm able to actually validate these experiments. And I'm seeing that these orgone device generator devices are performing some form of a task for us. They are helping us to more readily have the energy that we need to not just live, but live productively and like happily and live in a place of like heart and love and joy, right? And they seem to be helping these plants grow faster and stronger, right? So imagine just for a moment that in the palm of all of our hands, we have what used to be the cathedral, right? Maybe, right? Maybe we do have the cathedral in the palm of our hand. What I mean by that is we might have this device that is sending our energy through the ether, through which is why they don't want us to know anything about the ether. Because once we start understanding about the ether, then we start understanding that we can withdraw some of the energy that we've been placing there for these things all of this time. So, hope that's not a little too out there for everybody, but you know, needless to say, we are siphoning tons of our energy into social media, which is magic. When you start looking into what magic is, intention, this and that, so on, you start to see that all of these things that are put here to distract us, to occupy us, we're feeding other people's magic, guys. We're feeding the energy of others, and we just don't know it, and so we don't know not to, right? Like, you know, we all love to trance out on a good movie, to really dive into a fantastic book or alternative reality, right? And do you ever wonder like where that energy goes, that focus that you're pouring into that? I mean, yes, you're getting something back in the form of a concept within your mind, but your focal energy, that's heavy stuff, man. That's the stuff dreams are made of, right? So just putting that out there, let's get a little bit further into this post, and we'll take a look. Again, the link is in the bottom here. I couldn't figure out how to get it to share live, so whatever. I just wanted to pop on and kind of you know, extend myself to the universe today. But so these things refer to themselves as Legion, and where do we see this? We see this in like horror movies, always about the Vatican. exercising something, and this thing's always calling itself Legion or whatever. This particular person says reminds them of jinns or malevolent spirits, and I think they're probably pretty much right. Now, so back to those buildings, those creepy, weird buildings seem to have been built for a purpose that we just can't quite grasp or figure out. They look like magnetrons and different things they resemble. And after looking at Shape Power, reading through that few 100-page book, and understanding that, man, just the shapes of a lot of these things in this old world that we look at and talk about have the capacity and the capability to generate charge, to generate energy that can then be tapped into or stored. The capacity is there. I have a video up on bricks for batteries, buildings for batteries. Go take a look at that. They're coming out with this stuff mainstream and telling us that these things are legitimate now. So we're on the right path with all of this madness, what some people call madness. And it seems to me that truths have been hidden within video games, all sorts of media, hidden within the magic, so that we don't really see what we're capable of, what's going on, etc. So imagine, right, that these things, I really wish that I could show these pictures to you guys. This would make a little bit better of a point. So I will again suggest that you go take a look at the link that's in the description there. Okay. And we're just talking a fiction. We're talking about a video game called Mass Effect. And the interesting thing is that the corporation that runs it or something, the network itself of this travel is called the Citadel. Right. And what were old Starfort cities called? They were called the Citadel. So there's a reason these things were built with the encoding of all of their location data, size of the earth data, right? Like we're talking about the pyramid. We're talking about all of these numbers encoded within the pyramid. This could have been, and I'm not going to knock Jason at Archaics for suggesting that this is an implant into our world for a certain purpose. It may very well be, but I think what another purpose is a beacon, right? And we see like a nod to this when we look in Las Vegas and we see the beacon on the top of the Luxor pyramid. It was a locational beacon. That's why the locations are embedded within the mathematics of the buildings themselves. Same with cathedrals, guys. Go look into this stuff. It's interesting. It's crazy interesting that there's so much information built into these structures. You got to wonder if they don't serve a different purpose, right? So again, each reaper is made of the collective organic material of a nation. And what are we doing right now? Again, I'm going to hammer on this. We are giving out our organic material to these corporations of our nation, right? Come on, let's pay attention to what's going on in the world, everybody. Anyway, so the thought is that that these buildings were built to harvest, at a minimum, harvest like Oregon energy, harvest your prowess, your chi, your prana, right? Your intention, right? So now we're going to talk at Ad Orientem. So this is another thing we notice is that cathedrals and churches are facing east for the most part, right? A majority of them respect that building rule. And again, in this thing I'm looking at that you're welcome to go ahead and pull up and take a look at, it explains in detail Ad Orientem, the orientation of Gothic cathedrals in France. So in Latin, Ad Orientem means eastwards. In the Catholic liturgy, it describes an eastward orientation of a celebrating mass according to the cosmic sign of the rising sun, which symbolizes the universality of God. And you might be like, well, what does this all have to do with Christmas, Randy? Well, we're talking about mass here, guys, right? Tons of people out there right now at this very moment are attending their Christmas mass. Maybe even in an eastward facing cosmic sign of the rising sun church or cathedral, right? So it's interesting to note that the earliest churches in Rome had the main entrance facing east and an apse with the altar to the west. The priest celebrating the mass stood behind the altar facing east, so towards the people. According to Helen Dietz, after the Christians in the Rome of the 4th century freely began to build churches, they located the sanctuary toward the west end of the building with the symbolic proposal of imitating the sanctuary of the Jerusalem temple. So, and then we've got some demonstrations, some images of these cathedrals, the shapes, and something to look at. Go take a look at Great Deception podcast. Got with Matthew Smith over there at Build Design Dream Design Build. Sorry, and they had some overlays of the human form and these cathedrals, and you can kind of see why they're built like this. They're built to speak to the hearts of people, or possibly to extract something from the hearts of the people, right? So we've got some images here, and there's a further image showing how many cathedrals are facing east. Like there's a diagram that expresses and shows, and a vast majority of them are within, the 90-degree orientation of the east there. Okay, so could it be? All right. Anyway, the rose windows then. So if the cathedral's facing east, the rose windows are facing west, directly in the opposite side of where the head of the building is. Now, the proposal is, could it be that from that rose window, some kind of a beam of energy is filtrated or shaped the harmonic of the rose pattern and then extended outside of the cathedral? And if it's pointing west and there's another cathedral over there further pointing east, it would be in a position to capture and send that energy forward as some kind of a maybe electromagnetic resonator of some kind, right? So maybe the rose window makes it a specific vibration or have a specific shape or harmonic pattern, right? So what's interesting also is that the cathedrals face east to west alignment with reference to the magnetic north of their area, okay? So this is reminiscent of, if you're familiar with electronics and what dipoles and polar molecules are, you see that when the magnetic field around a particle is such, the particle will line up with the field itself, right? They will line up with the field itself. So is that what we're seeing with these cathedrals? And I'll point out to something, guys, and this is one reason why I might find this specific shape argument credible. When you look at the magnetic information of a monopole, which is the suggestion of flat earthers are suggesting that Earth is a monopole plane, right? When you look at that and you use a little imagination and you see the way that all of the magnetics are fanned out from the center, and you imagine your cathedrals around the world in a straight line, what you have is you then have a circuit, okay? And circuits are very important when it comes to electronics and channeling energy, right? Magnifying, channeling, you want to have a circuit. You want to have a circuit with certain components that are going to do what you need to do for the frequency to be what you need it to be when you finally extract it out of that circuit, right? So here's another idea. Okay, so we got the monopole, flat Earth, circular grid idea. Okay, I think it kind of also works with the globe also, because it's still circular. You know what I mean? It's still circular, and within both models, we have the flat circular orientations, right? Like we'd still be able to inlay a circuit, right, on top of the plane or the planet, regardless, in my opinion. So if cathedrals are facing each other in a circular grid, one would speculate, and one could speculate, that there's an engineering and technical reason for it. And this goes to everything about the cathedrals, everything about these old world buildings, fractal antennas, etc. There's definitely a technical reason for it, guys. Like you see how frivolous we are with certain things in this world today, right? But detail is not one of them. This is something that takes intense focus, dedication, and really it takes some love of what you're doing to create technology, to create beautiful art. And in my opinion, art and technology are one and the same. Okay, it's a beautiful thing. You start looking at microelectronics, and you start looking at all the detail that's involved in such a small space. And what you do is you imagine going back in time infinitely. If you have to go back in time, things get bigger. Go back to the 1940s. We have a computer the size of a room. So what happens if you go back to the 1840s? How big is that computer going to be? It's going to be the size of a warehouse, right? Do you really think that they just didn't have them? Or is it more likely that behind the scenes, this stuff was being developed, prepared, right? And is it also possible that in the past, humanity reached its plateau, was not growing anymore, was in a place of beauty and love and divinity and so on. And then this thing, this reaper of the citadel, right, extracts. And we look at it, a lot of people are looking at it like okay, unless it's a rapture, it's a bad thing. Like unless it's a Christian God endorsed rapture, then it's a bad thing. Okay. And I don't know. It seems that there's definitely a cycle happening of some kind. We have an issue of like, where do all the people go several times in the history that we've been given of the world. So maybe perhaps, when a group of souls are done here, maybe we do move somewhere else, do something else, expand some other way, right? There definitely seems to be a limitation on what we're allowed to do with our mind power in this place. So maybe that's for the next place, right? Anyway, so back to cathedrals. All right. So again, the idea is there's a technical reason for this circuit, right? And so is it possible these rose windows are shooting energy beams toward another cathedral, making a point-to-point connection for either communication reasons or even on the extreme side of things, teleporting people and objects through it? How cool would that be? I agree. It would be very cool if we could shoot people through one cathedral to another. But I do believe, and I do firmly, stick to and think and feel even that when we're talking about communication, I think that we could be onto something here with the communication. How would you keep all of the churches up on what the mass was going to be for, about, or focus? There's behind the scenes stuff going on, and someone who outlines it in a specific way that is kind of with this argument here is Ari Asulin, speaking of the deep state having communication devices within these churches and chapels to how else would you dominate people, right? You would have to have an inside group that's in on it and affects whatever effects that need to be done. Now, does that mean that it was strictly for negative influence? No, I don't think so. I think that it could have been an energetic gain for people too, maybe, right? So many cathedral interiors are meant to be empty and entertaining enough for a small amount of time for travelers to wait in line so they could zap around the grid. Possibly, and this may be a valid thing if we're speaking of a different type of people that aren't carbon based. Maybe these people that we were, playing with the idea of being breatharian, right? If they were more tapped into energy and would actually be consuming energy, they would most likely be able to travel with it also. So this would mean that they would just shoot around this grid like the mass relays in the Mass Effect game. And I think there's a bit of truth in all of these games, all of these animes, all these renditions. How could that be, you might ask, Randy? How could there be that much truth in all these off-the-wall crazy stories? Well, if you look at time as infinite, there's been plenty of time for all of this stuff to happen. And I feel like we're just on the tail end of it all. That's why so many of these concepts resonate with so many of us, because maybe we've taken part in those existences before. Anyway, so the cathedrals may have been used today as we use train stations, is the idea. It would have been super cool, though, just as this person says, how convenient just to carry what you need for the day, go and meet your friends in another continent, and then be back for dinner in the same day. So, and another thing, he goes further to outline that all ancient civilizations were obsessed with predicting solar and lunar eclipses. Now, is this because the whole grid goes offline during these electromagnetic events? I think that's valid. I think that that makes perfect sense. Maybe those affected might, you know, within this transportation system, like imagine they're going from like Ireland to New York. And because there's a solar eclipse out there, the guy just materializes over the middle of the ocean, you know. So maybe that's, you know, it's a valid reason why they would be so keen on documenting and understanding these things. Um, so that's the idea. And you know, and then today, of course, we need a freaking permit to go 15 miles over a border or whatever. So things have changed. Things have changed. So you know, there's it's interesting now. Now there are other functions are again energy harvesting. Um, Teleportation's one that you know, it could be right. It could be. But I definitely think that if you've ever used uh if you've ever used a singing bowl, let me pull this up here. It's good to see you, Nicole. And you know, so that was the random thought that I wanted to portray, and I haven't figured out how to pull up the share, but go take a look at that link that I put in the description. And I've always felt that there's something about these cathedrals that screams technology, right? The basic idea that I have when it comes to these buildings, these cathedrals, these underground sewage and piping systems. I think quite a few things about them, really. But what I see is happening is, again, if you extrapolate backwards in time, the size of our computing capability. I mean, today we're talking, you know, tiny. 100 years ago, we're talking the size of a room, right? And then you keep going backwards. What do you have? The size of a house. You have going onward. You have the size of a warehouse, right? A big, massive machine that's main purpose is to compute probably statistics and odds. And this is how they maintain control over people. By knowing those statistics, knowing what the odds are of people behaving a certain way, then they can go ahead and exercise something, knowing what the end result's going to be, you know, and knowing what the odds are of their failure. And so it gives these people a leg up, right? So at a minimum, these cathedrals and these things were transistors for a bigger system. That's kind of the thought that I have. As far as teleporting, I don't know that it's ever been like a thing here in this realm. You know, subconsciously, intuitively, it could be done. We're all just waveforms anyway, like waiting for an observer. So, you know, it could very well be. But you know, I just wanted to jump on here Christmas morning. Kids still sleep, thank goodness, right? I didn't have to get up early and do all the craziness that a lot of people do. I took care of it last night, you know. So, but anyway, much love to everybody out there, and go take a look at that site and you know, tell me what you think. Let me know what you think there. Sorry I couldn't get it to share. Maybe I'll just put up a visualization of it for folks to look at. I know not everybody's keen on having to you know, look online for things or dig around for stuff. I get it. Convenience is key. That's what the world is about, right? Convenience. And let's just make it also about love, everybody. So much love to you, and Merry Christmas.